The council chamber was not made for shouting, but tonight it trembled with it. Walls lined with silver stone reflected the voices of 100 species, their words colliding in a storm of accusation, suspicion, and fear. At the center, on the raised platform, the human ambassador stood silent. His hands were folded behind his back, his face calm, his eyes steady. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The council was already doing exactly what humans wanted showing. Their panic, the Velrai delegates slammed a claw against the table. Earth's fleets grow larger every cycle. Their weapons are not registered with the council. They refuse full inspections, yet they claim to be cooperative. This is not cooperation. This is defiance. Others joined in, their voices different in tone, but alike in message. Earth was becoming too strong, too unpredictable. The council had forced other worlds into disarmament, reshaped entire planetary governments to keep them in check. But Earth, small, young and new to the galactic stage, had somehow kept much of its power intact. That alone was dangerous. That alone was intolerable. Across the chamber, a thin insectoid envoy named Yurs leaned forward, his sharp mandibles clicking softly. Perhaps the humans are not as weak as they pretend. I have seen their ships in deep patrol. They travel without escorts, yet none dare intercept them. Perhaps they hide their teeth. The room went still for a moment. Those words, "hide their teeth," spread like a ripple through water. They fit too well. For decades, the council had believed Earth's military to be formidable, but not exceptional, restrained by treaties and political pressure. But if that was a mask, if they were playing weak, waiting for the perfect moment, that possibility chilled even the most arrogant council members. The human ambassador finally spoke. His voice was steady, low, and carried in the sudden silence. Earth has followed every agreement. We have bent when asked to bend. We have allowed inspections where it was agreed. If the council believes we are dangerous, then perhaps it is because you are seeing yourselves in us. No one expected that. The words were not a threat, yet they felt like one. Several envoys shifted uneasily. In the council's long history, no new member had spoken to them like that, not without trembling. The human didn't tremble, far away. In the shadowed halls of Earth's fleet command, the real conversations were happening. Generals stood around a circular table displaying a holographic map of known space. Entire sectors glowed in red, each marking a potential point of escalation. Fleet movements were already in motion, quietly and visibly. War was not declared, but preparations were no longer hidden. "They're pressing us," Admiral Reyes said. Her voice clipped. "Economic sanctions, trade interference, border probes. The council wants to push us into reacting first, so they can claim we're the aggressors." A young officer frowned. "Do we push back now?" Reyes shook her head. "Not yet. Let them think we're still holding back. Let them believe they can corner us. When they finally cross the line, they'll see exactly what Earth's been preparing for." Back in the council chamber, the meeting dragged on for hours. Accusations became demands. Demands became threats. And through it all, the human ambassador stayed calm. But beneath that calm, every word, every reaction was being fed back to Earth. They were mapping the council's moves before the council even made them. And then, near the end of the session, the Zoroth representative made a mistake. He leaned forward, his voice almost mocking. "If Earth truly had the strength to challenge us, they would have shown it already. You delay because you have nothing to reveal." The human ambassador only smiled, small, cold, and unreadable. "Be very certain you want to find out." Words landed like a silent bomb in the room. No shouting followed. No one wanted to push further in that moment. But outside, far beyond the walls of the council chamber, fleets moved in the dark, cloaked and ready. On Earth's moons, weapons older than the council's founding were being powered for the first time in decades. The galaxy still thought humanity was holding back out of weakness. The truth was far more dangerous. They were holding back because they hadn't yet decided if the galaxy was worth sparing. The council's demands came faster now, as if they were trying to break Earth's patience by sheer weight of orders. Every communication was marked urgent, every tone sharpened with condescension. They wanted more ships for their border wars, more resources mined from Earth's asteroid belts, more human soldiers deployed to alien worlds where survival rates were almost zero. And always, there was that same underlying message: do as you are told, or face consequences. To the Council, humans were useful, but expendable. They saw Earth as a resource, not an equal. But in quiet rooms deep beneath the surface, far from the reach of Council spies, human leaders gathered and whispered about a line. A line the Council must never cross. And everyone in that room knew if they did cross it, there would be no going back. Admiral Sarah Connors stood in the war chamber of Earth's Defense Command, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display of the galaxy. Red lines marked disputed zones, flashing with tension. But her attention was on a single pulsing DATR's home system. The Council's latest orders were not requests. They were threats wrapped in diplomatic words. They wanted to place observers in every human military base, claiming it was for mutual trust. Sarah knew better. Those observers would be spies, mapping every strength and every weakness. If they found the wrong thing, they might learn what Earth had been hiding for decades. And if that happened, there would be no turning back from war. The other side of the galaxy, in the towering city spire of the Council's capital, Ambassador Varen leaned back in his chair with a smug smile. To him, humans were still young, eckless, clever, but too small to resist true power. They are clever enough to fight, he said to the other alien delegates, but not clever enough to know when they've lost. The chamber laughed, their voices echoing off crystal walls. They had pushed other worlds like this before, slowly taking piece by piece, until resistance became impossible. They saw no reason why Earth would be different. But Varen had never fought a war against humans. He had never seen what they became when cornered. That night, in the dimly lit corridors of the Lunar Command Center, Sarah received a secure message from an unknown source. The words were simple. They are moving fleets toward the Sol border. The next step will not be words. For a long moment, she just stared at the message. Then she closed it and walked into the briefing room where her generals waited. The look on her face made them all stand a little straighter. The Council, she said, her voice low but steady, is about to make the mistake we've been preparing for. Across Earth, silent codes were activated. In hidden shipyards buried under the oceans, black-holed warships powered up for the first time in years. Weapons that had never been shown to the Council were rolled from secret vaults. In civilian cities, nothing appeared different but under the surface. Every hidden thread of Earth's defense began to pull tight. The pressure had built for years. Now, the line was close, and humanity was ready. But what the Council did not understand was that they had already crossed it. The Council thought it had Earth pinned down. Every message sent to the humans in the past month carried sharper words, more demands, and heavier threats. Other worlds whispered that Earth's time was running out, that the Council would soon force it to kneel. In the shadowy halls of the Galactic Assembly, smug diplomats exchanged knowing looks, convinced that the human defiance was just the last flare before surrender. But they didn't know what was moving beneath the surface. They didn't hear the quiet orders whispered in Earth's military command. They didn't see the lights burning through the night inside the underground facilities that officially did not exist. And they certainly didn't notice the way human fleets had stopped reporting their true positions in the last few days. In the middle of it all, Ambassador Rael of the Clivathi Alliance sat in a private chamber, studying the latest intercepted human communications. Rael had dealt with humans before too many times, and he knew they weren't the type to simply give in. His long, jointed fingers tapped the edge of the holotable as the human ambassador's last words replayed in his mind. "We will comply. For now." That pause before "for now" bothered him. It wasn't fear, it was a warning. But when Rael tried to explain this to the Council's security chamber, they laughed. "Humans are resourceful," one delegate said with a smirk. "But even they can't fight the combined fleets of 47 worlds." Rael wanted to believe that. Really did. But something in his instincts screamed otherwise. On Earth, things were moving fast. Captain Alina Ward stood on the deck of the Resolute, staring at the stars beyond the view shield. The ship had been pulled from its routine patrol and reassigned with zero explanation. Her crew didn't ask questions, but she could feel the tension in every step they took. Engineers moved with the speed of people who knew time was running out. Weapons crews whispered about classified orders sealed in encrypted files. When Ward finally received her briefing, her breath caught. The Council's last demand had crossed a line humans had sworn never to let anyone cross again. Now the gloves were coming off. The first real spark came in the form of a border incident small enough to dismiss, dangerous enough to ignite. A Council patrol ship intercepted a human cargo vessel near the Eridan Rift. The official report claimed the human ship had strayed into restricted space, but Ward had the real footage. The Council patrol had fired first. The human vessel hadn't even powered its weapons. Still, the Council broadcast the incident across the galaxy as proof of human aggression. Within hours, the assembly chambers echoed with calls for sanctions, military inspection of Earth's defense network, and even partial disarmament. It was everything the humans had feared and exactly what they had been waiting for. Back in Geneva, deep beneath the United Nations complex, a meeting was taking place in a room with no name. Generals, intelligence officers, and a few civilians, who never appeared on public rosters, sat around a table, faces grim. The air was heavy with the knowledge that there was no turning back. One of them, an older admiral with silver hair and eyes like steel, spoke only once during the briefing. "They think they've cornered us," he said quietly. "What they've done is give us permission. No one asked permission for what?" Everyone in that room already knew. Meanwhile, the Council continued its pressure campaign, unaware that every threat only fueled the fire they couldn't see. El Rail sent another warning to the security chamber, this time more urgent. "You are pushing a species that thrives under pressure," he told them. "I have seen their history. I have seen how they fight when they have no choice left. You think they are at their limit? This is where they start." But his words fell into silence. The chamber's chair simply thanked him for his concern and moved on to the next topic. By the time the Council realized something was wrong, it was already too late. The first shift in the balance came quietly. Trade routes that once swarmed with human freighters began to go dark, replaced by unmarked ships moving without transponders. Human colonies went silent, not abandoned, but cut off from external communication. Military traffic spiked, but the patterns didn't match any known mobilization. It was chaos without being chaos, a deliberate confusion meant to hide the real movement beneath. And still the Council told itself that Earth was stalling, that their fear was finally showing. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that humanity's real strength had never been the fleets or the weapons they had shown. It was what they had hidden. Weapons that had never been registered with the Council. Ships that had never left dry dock, waiting for a day like this, and a single unified decision made in a windowless room. Earth would not break if war came. It would not be a defensive one. The spark had been lit. All that remained was for the fire to spread. The Council chamber was never silent. Even when meetings ended, the walls seemed to hum with the leftover tension of power and politics. But that day, the air was heavier than ever. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in their high seats, all eyes locked on the single human delegation standing at the center. Ambassador Keller stood like a statue, hands folded behind his back, his face calm to calm. Some in the chamber saw it as a sign of submission. Others saw it as arrogance. None realized it was neither. It was a mask, carefully held in place for years. But that mask was about to crack. The Council's speaker, a tall alien with silver skin and voice like breaking glass, leaned forward. "Earth has refused yet again to comply with the tribute demands," the speaker announced. "Yet somehow their fleets grow stronger. This is unacceptable. For the stability of the galaxy, they must be restrained." The word hung in the air like a blade, sharp and ready to cut. Whispers rose among the delegations, whispers of sanctions, blockades, maybe even forced disarmament. But Keller didn't flinch. He simply let the noise wash over him like distant rain, In the shadowed rows at the far end, Admiral Rachel of the Threx Empire studied the human closely. She had fought in 3 wars and crushed dozens of rebel systems, but something about the way Keller stood bothered her. He didn't look cornered. He didn't look beaten. He looked patient. And patience in a predator was far more dangerous than rage. Rachel leaned toward her aide and whispered, "They're hiding something." "Find out what?" Her aide nodded and slipped away. The debate raged on for hours, the council demanding more concessions, accusing Earth of arrogance, thinking themselves above the laws that bound the other worlds. Some delegates shouted for the dismantling of human fleets. Others called for seizing Earth's outer colonies. Keller finally spoke, his voice steady and low. "Earth has followed every treaty that was fair, every law that was just, but we will not kneel to demands meant only to weaken us." His words were not loud, but they struck the chamber like a sudden cold wind. Several alien leaders bristled. Others looked uneasy. The speaker's tone hardened. "You think your small world can defy the will of the galaxy?" Keller met their gaze without a blink. "I think you've mistaken restraint for weakness." That was when the murmurs truly began. That single sentence pierced through the political theater and hit something deeper in unease that had been growing for years. For too long, the council had assumed humans were at the peak of their ability. The thought that they might be holding back was not just insulting, it was terrifying. After the session adjourned, the corridors buzzed with hurried conversations. Envoys called their governments. Spies passed messages in coded whispers. Reports began circulating of human warships moving in strange patterns, of colonies suddenly reinforcing their defenses, of resource shipments doubling in speed. None of it could be confirmed. But the rumor alone was enough to plant the seed of fear, and fear spread quickly in the halls of power. Meanwhile, far from the council world, deep in an uncharted sector, a massive ship hung in the void. It was unlike anything the galaxy had seen, long, dark, bristling with weapons whose designs were unknown to any alien database. Its crew moved with precision, their voices calm, their eyes cold. They had been waiting for a single command, one that had not been given in decades. And now, deep inside the human government's secure channels, that order was being drafted. Back on the council world, Admiral Rachel received a report from her aide. "It's worse than I thought," the aide whispered. "They've been building ships and systems the council doesn't even have mapped, entire fleets, and they've kept it hidden for years." Rachel's blood ran cold. She realized that all this time humanity hadn't been growing careless. They had been preparing. Every insult, every sanction, every demand the council had made had only given Earth more reason to sharpen its blade in the human embassy. Keller stood by the window, watching the alien skyline. The city's towers shimmered under the alien sun, but his eyes were fixed on the dark horizon. Knew the moment was close. Restraint could only last so long before it became a liability. Soon, the council would push just one step too far. And when they did, the mask would shatter. The council believed they had tightened the noose around Earth. Sanctions had cut trade routes. Taxes on every ship flying the human flag were doubled, and patrol fleets shadowed human cargo haulers through every sector. The message was clear. Earth was to obey, submit, prove it understood its place in the galactic order, to the council. This was a final push. Either humans bowed their heads, or they would be crushed. But the thing the council did not understand was that humans rarely reacted the way other species did. Pressure did not break them. It sharpened them. Admiral Rhea Sloan stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's Defense Command. Around her, the floor-to-ceiling holomap displayed a web of council patrol routes, blockade lines, and sensor nets. "They've built a cage," her aide muttered, "and they think we're trapped inside it." Rhea's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. "They've made a mistake. The only thing worse than threatening us is giving us time to prepare." She knew the truth. The past months had not been wasted in panic or diplomacy. They'd been building something the galaxy had never seen. Every insult, every blockade, every demand had been fuel, far above Earth. Beyond even the Council's most advanced scanners, a vast black structure floated silently in the void. It had no registry, no beacon, and no detectable power signature. Engineers called it the Spire. Those few who knew of it whispered a different name, the Blade in the dark. It was more than a ship. It was a platform for weapons Earth had never revealed, systems the Council didn't even know humans had developed. It waited, patient as a predator, for the order to move. The Council's representatives on Earth kept pushing. They sent new ultimatums: dismantle military outposts, surrender orbital platforms, and withdraw from disputed systems. The president of Earth's unified government listened politely in every meeting, signing nothing, agreeing to nothing. Behind closed doors, the military command reviewed timelines. 3 more days, Rhea told them. After that, we stopped pretending. The trigger came sooner than expected. In the dead of night over Earth's western hemisphere, alarms screamed through the orbital defense network. Council warship 6 destroyers and 2 cruisers had entered the Sol system without clearance. They transmitted a short, cold message: "We are here to enforce compliance. No warning shots. No negotiation." Just the kind of arrogance the Council had always shown to weaker species. But Earth was not weaker, not anymore. Rhea's command center went silent as her eyes locked on the holographic display. "Activate Ghost Protocol," she ordered. Across the system, hidden satellites powered up, projecting false fleet movements to confuse enemy sensors. Civilian traffic vanished from the map as evacuation shuttles slipped into deep space safe zones. And then the Spire moved. It came out of shadow like a nightmare, massive and silent, black hole, drinking in starlight. Council scanners barely caught it before their systems began to fail. The Spire's first shot wasn't a missile, but a burst of raw electromagnetic fury that blinded every enemy targeting array within 500,000 kilometers. The destroyers were suddenly blind, their precision advantage gone in an instant. The second strike followed a kinetic lance, invisible until impact. Tearing through the lead cruiser and splitting it apart in a spray of molten metal, in the Council fleet's command room. Panic spread like fire. "This is impossible," their admiral shouted. "Humans do not have weapons of this class." His words cut off as another ship vanished from the display. In reality, Rhea's face remained calm, eyes hard as steel. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was a message. Within 20 minutes, the battle was over. 4 Council ships were drifting wrecks. The others fled, limping back toward the jump gate. Rhea didn't chase them. She wanted survivors to carry the story, to tell the Council what they had seen, to tell them the truth they had refused to believe. Earth had been holding back. As the war room's lights dimmed back to normal, her aide whispered, "What happens now?" Rhea didn't look away from the holomap. She said softly, "They realized the cage they built was around themselves." The Council's grand chamber had never been so quiet. The towering pillars of white stone seemed to lean inward, as if even the walls wanted to hear what was coming. Every delegate sat stiff in their seat, their eyes fixed on the single figure. Standing in the center of the room, Admiral Carter didn't speak right away. He didn't need to. The silence he carried into the chamber was heavier than any weapon. He had arrived without guards, without a retinue, without even a data pad in his hands. Just himself, in the dark uniform of Earth's fleet, the kind of black that seemed to swallow the light around him. His expression was calm, but there was something behind his eyes that made several alien leaders shift uncomfortably in their chairs. The Council had demanded Earth appear to answer for its actions. Earth had come, but not to answer. It had come to deliver something else entirely. No. One had forgotten the reports from the border. Whole enemy fleets dismantled in minutes. Armies that had never known defeat retreating in chaos. Trade routes secured overnight. No one understood how Earth's ships moved so fast, or why their weapons left no wreckage behind, just empty space where once there had been warships. But there were whispers, and those whispers had reached the ears of the Council. Earth was not fighting with the weapons everyone else used. They were using something older, something perfected in the dark. Now, as Admiral Carter's boots echoed across the polished floor, those whispers seemed to grow louder in every mind present. He stopped in the center. looking around at the ring of alien leaders. You wanted Earth to be small, he began, his voice deep and steady, carrying without effort. You wanted us contained, managed, controlled. You pushed, and we let you. He paced slowly, his hands behind his back. We let you write your rules, draw your borders. Tell us where we could and couldn't go. We let you send your inspectors, your diplomats, your spies, and all that time you thought you were holding us back. He stopped again, letting the pause stretch long enough for the tension to burn. You weren't. The Dravik Chancellor's claws tapped against the desk, a nervous staccato that echoed in the quiet. Are you threatening the council? He asked, his voice breaking slightly. Carter's eyes turned toward him, cold and sharp. No, he said. I'm informing you. He reached into his pocket and placed a small silver sphere on the table in front of him. The sphere hummed softly, and a holographic projection burst upward, not of a ship, but of a star. It rotated slowly, glowing orange, until suddenly, in the projection, the star began to collapse in on itself. Every delegate leaned forward, some in confusion, others in horror. This, Carter said, is what happens when one of our containment fields fails. That was a test far away from any inhabited world. We did it to see if the theory worked. And it did. The implications sank in, like a knife. A weapon that could end not just fleets or cities, but entire systems. Carter's gaze swept the chamber again. For years you've assumed Earth was behind the rest of you. That we were learning your technology. That we were trying to catch up. He shook his head slowly. The truth is, we've been ahead of you for decades. We've simply had no reason to show you. Until now.
The sphere clicked softly, and the hologram vanished.
The sudden darkness in the room made the moment feel even heavier. From the upper balconies, aides whispered urgently to their leaders, some already preparing exit routes in case things turned violent. The Sorthon delegate, his voice trembling, finally asked, "And what is it you want, Admiral?" Carter stepped closer too. The center of the ring. "We want nothing from you," he said. "We will take our place in this galaxy without your permission. We will move where we choose, trade where we choose, defend who we choose, and if any of you attempt to push Earth again..." He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping so low it forced everyone to listen harder. "Remember that sphere?" Number 1 moved. The Council, once the most powerful body in the galaxy, sat frozen, each leader calculating the cost of defiance. Carter straightened, giving them one final look, not of anger, but of absolute certainty, then turned on his heel and walked out. The great doors closed behind him with a deep, resonant boom. Only when his footsteps faded did the chamber erupt into a storm of voices, arguments, and panicked orders. But it didn't matter. Somewhere deep down, they all knew the truth. The galaxy had changed. The Council's age of control was over, and Earth had just shown the first glimpse of what it could truly do.